The Orion Assembly had ruled the stars for 9,000 years. It was not just an alliance, it was certainty itself. Over 1,000 species, 10 million inhabited worlds, civilizations so old they remembered the birth of suns. They had conquered disease, defeated entropy on 1,000 fronts, and bent the fabric of space to their will. Entire galaxies had been mapped, catalogued, and archived in their endless pursuit of knowledge. There was nothing left to fear, until the stars started going dark. At first, it was dismissed as a sensor error. A single outpost in the Perseus arm stopped transmitting. Then another. Then 50 more. Entire systems gone silent. No distress calls. No debris. No radiation signatures. Just absence. The assembly sent probes. The probes transmitted for exactly 3.2 seconds before their signals vanished. They sent war fleets next. 3,000 ships, equipped with weapons capable of cracking planets and shields that could withstand stellar collapse. The fleet entered the affected region in perfect formation. They never came back. Not a single wreckage fragment was recovered. Not a single survivor. Not even a signal echo. It was as if they had never existed at all. That was when the assembly began to worry. Ambassador Serac of the Varelian Consensus stood in the central observatory of Nexus Spire, staring into a region of space that should have been filled with stars. Instead, there was a void. A wound carved into the galaxy itself. Entire constellations had been erased. Not destroyed, not consumed, but removed. The star charts updated automatically, attempting to compensate, but even the historical archives were beginning to glitch. Records of those systems were disappearing. Serac blinked slowly, his crystalline eyes flickering as he accessed the data stream again. He had studied the Tellurian cluster for over 3 centuries. He knew every star, every orbit, every inhabited world. Now, he could not remember their names. Not a single one. A cold sensation spread through his neural lattice. This was not war. War left scars. War left evidence. This left nothing. Ambassador, a voice whispered behind him. Serac turned. It was Archivist Loom, her form trembling, her bioluminescent patterns flickering erratically. They've updated the casualty reports, she said. Serac did not ask how many. He was afraid the number would not make sense. They're not numbers anymore, Loom continued, her voice breaking. We can't count what's missing because we can't remember what was there. Serac felt something fractured deep within his consciousness. What do you mean? Loom stepped closer, lowering her voice as if the void itself might hear them. I had a sister, she said. She lived on a world in the Perseus arm. I know she did. I remember loving her. She paused. But I can't remember her name. Silence filled the observatory. Not the peaceful kind. The heavy, suffocating kind that pressed against the mind. Serac turned back to the void. For the first time in 600 years of service, he felt something alien clawing at his thoughts. Fear. What are we facing? He asked. Loom shook her head slowly. We don't know. There is no recorded instance of resistance. Silence. Then, slowly, a new data stream appeared. Evacuation routes. Mass migration projections. Fallback galaxies. The meaning was clear before anyone said it aloud. We cannot fight this, Thalrek said. The words tasted like poison. 1,000 civilizations held their breath. We will initiate Protocol Exodus. The chamber erupted. No. This is surrender. We are the Orion Assembly. And we will cease to exist if we stay, Thalrex roared, his voice cracking with something dangerously close to desperation. That stopped them, because, deep down, they all knew he was right. If there is even a chance to preserve our species, we must take it, he continued. We will retreat beyond the galactic boundary. We will rebuild. We will survive. Survive. The word felt smaller than it ever had before. The projection shifted again. The void was spreading. Faster now. Closer. Entire civilizations were being wiped out in days. Then hours. Then minutes. A final update appeared. Estimated time until core regions are affected. 11 days. 11 days. For a civilization that had lasted 9,000 years, 11 days was nothing. And for the first time in its entire existence, the Orion Assembly understood something its ancestors never had. They were not the apex. They were prey. The evacuation began before the vote was finalized. It had to. Across the Orion Assembly, billions of vessels ignited their drives at once. Entire civilizations packed their histories into data cores, their populations into generational ships, their identities into whatever fragments could be saved. The sky itself looked like it was fleeing. From the capital world of Nexus Spire, Ambassador Serac watched it all unfold. Streams of light stretched across the heavens as ships jumped toward the outer dark, toward the void between galaxies where, for the first time in 9,000 years, survival meant hiding. It felt wrong. Everything about it felt wrong. This is the correct decision. Serac turned. Executor Thalrex stood behind him, his towering form rigid, his voice steady, but his eyes betrayed him. Even he didn't believe it. "We preserve what we can," Thalrex continued. "That is what matters now." Serac said nothing, because deep down, he knew this wasn't preservation. This was surrender. A sudden movement in the lower docking fields caught his attention. Unlike the chaotic streams of evacuation traffic, one formation stood perfectly still. 42 ships. Small. Primitive by assembly standards. Their hulls were unpolished, their designs inelegant. Functional rather than beautiful. "Human." Serac frowned. "They're late," he said. "Their evacuation window closes in 17 minutes. Thalrex followed his gaze. "They've been notified. Then why aren't they moving?" As if in answer, one of the human ships detached from the formation. But instead of turning toward the evacuation corridors, it rotated, facing inward, toward the galaxy, toward the spreading void. Serac felt a flicker of confusion. Then another ship followed. Then another. All 42 vessels shifted formation, not to flee, but to face the oncoming darkness. "That is," Serac hesitated. "Incorrect." A transmission request appeared in the air between them. "Origin. Human Fleet Command." Thalrex accepted it. The projection formed instantly. A human woman stood at the center of the display. She was older than most military commanders Serac had seen among younger species. Her hair was streaked with gray, her posture relaxed but deliberate. There was no visible armor, no ceremonial markings of rank. And yet, she carried authority like gravity. "Executor Thalrex," she said calmly. "Ambassador Serac." Thalrex inclined his head slightly. "Admiral?" "Vance," she replied. "Helena Vance. United Earth Command." Serac searched his memory. Humans. Newcomers. 3 centuries into spaceflight. Barely a footnote in assembly history. "You are behind schedule, Admiral," Thalrex said. "Your evacuation corridor is closing." "We're aware," Vance replied. "Then proceed immediately. There is no time for delay." A brief pause. Then, "We're not evacuating." The words landed softly, but they hit harder than any weapon. Serac blinked. "I'm sorry," he said slowly. "You must be mistaken." "No," Vance said. "We're not." Thalrex's expression darkened. "Admiral, this is not a request. Your species has been granted safe passage. You will take it." Vance tilted her head slightly. "Respectfully, no." Silence. Not confusion this time. Something heavier. "You do not understand what is coming," Thalrex said, his voice tightening. "Entire civilizations have been erased. Species older than your star system have vanished without trace. This is not a war you can fight." Vance nodded once. "I know." Serac stepped forward. "Then why would you stay?" It was a logical question. A necessary one. Because nothing about this made sense. Humans were young. They were fragile. They had no chance. Every calculation, every projection, every model agreed. They would be gone within hours. Vance looked at them both. And for the first time, Serac noticed something strange in her expression. Not fear. Not denial. Something else. Something unbreakable. "Because someone has to," she said. The chamber seemed to shrink around those words. You are choosing extinction, Thalric said. No, Vance replied quietly. We're choosing to stand. Serac felt something stir in his mind. Something unfamiliar. Something dangerous. This is not bravery, he said. This is irrational. Vance smiled faintly. Yeah, she said. We get that a lot. Behind her, the human ships began to move. Not away. Forward. Toward the void. Toward the thing that erased existence itself. Serac watched them go. 42 ships. Against something that had devoured empires. It was absurd. It was meaningless. It was, he swallowed, impossible. And yet, they weren't running. The human fleet did not accelerate immediately. They advanced slowly, deliberately, as if they were not rushing toward annihilation, but walking toward something they had already accepted. From the observation deck, Serac watched in silence. They're still within recall range, one of the aides said behind him. We can force a command override. Pull them back. Serac didn't respond, because something inside him, something ancient and carefully controlled, was telling him not to. Another transmission signal appeared. Human origin. This time, Serac accepted it. Admiral Vance reappeared, standing on what looked like a command bridge. No panic. No urgency. Just quiet focus. Ambassador, she said. Serac studied her carefully. Explain. It wasn't a demand. It was something closer to confusion. Vance nodded once, as if she had expected that. Fair, she said. She turned slightly, gesturing toward the stars ahead, the region where the void was spreading. You've been in space a long time, she continued. Long enough to solve most of your problems. That is correct. You've optimized survival. Another nod. That is correct. Vance smiled faintly. Yeah, that's where we're different. Serac's crystalline gaze sharpened. Clarify. Vance folded her arms. Humans didn't start at the top, she said. We didn't inherit safety. We didn't grow up in a stable system with advanced tech and unified governments. She paused. We clawed our way up. The bridge lights dimmed slightly as her ship adjusted orientation. Outside, distant stars flickered, some disappearing entirely. Serac felt it again. That unease. That creeping absence. About 100,000 years ago, Vance continued, we were almost wiped out. Serac remained silent. He sensed this mattered. Our population dropped to a few thousand, she said. Climate collapse. Volcanic winter. Food chains breaking down. Predators everywhere. She looked back at him. We should have gone extinct. But you did not, Serac said. No, Vance replied. And, do you know why? Serac did not answer. Because he did not know. And for the first time, he wanted to. Because we didn't accept it, she said. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. We didn't sit down and wait for the end. We didn't calculate survival odds and choose the most efficient path. She stepped closer to the projection. We got angry. The word felt primitive. And yet, it carried weight. We crossed frozen continents with no supplies, she continued. We hunted animals bigger and stronger than us with sticks and stones. We survived diseases that should have wiped us out. We fought each other, constantly, and somehow still kept going. Serac processed the data rapidly. The inefficiency of it. The chaos. The lack of optimization. It made no sense. That is not logical, he said. Vance nodded. Exactly. A small smile touched her lips. Humans aren't always logical. She turned again, looking toward the advancing darkness. Every time something tried to wipe us out, we adapted. Not perfectly, not cleanly, but we adapted. Her voice softened slightly. We lost billions along the way. Serac's internal systems paused. Billions. Casually stated. Not as a failure, but as history. We burned our own cities, she said. We poisoned our own planet. We came within minutes of wiping ourselves out more than once. Serac felt a flicker of disbelief. You nearly caused your own extinction? Multiple times, Vance said. And yet, you survived. She nodded. Not because we were the strongest. Not because we were the smartest. A brief pause. But because we are too stubborn to die. The words settled into the silence between them. Heavy. Unyielding. Serac found himself unable to respond immediately, because for the first time,
he realized something.
The assembly had survived by avoiding extinction. Humans had survived by facing it. They expect us to run, Vance continued. Your assembly, every species they've encountered. That is the correct response. Yeah, she said again. But it's predictable. Serac's gaze sharpened. What are you implying? Vance's expression changed. Not softer. Sharper. They've never faced something like us, she said. Explain. We don't behave like prey. The void ahead pulsed faintly. Another system vanished. No explosion. No light. Just gone. And what do you think you are? Serac asked quietly. Vance held his gaze. Something worse. The answer came without hesitation. Serac felt something shift again inside him. Not fear. Not confusion. Something else. Something unsettling. You cannot win, he said. It wasn't an argument. It was fact. Vance nodded. Probably not. Serac blinked. The honesty caught him off guard. Then this is pointless. No, she said. It's not. She stepped closer to the projection again. If we run, we die later. If we stay, we might die now. Serac waited. There was more. There's not much difference between those outcomes, she said. Except one thing. What? Vance's eyes locked onto his. How we go out. Silence. The kind that presses against your thoughts. You measure survival in time, she continued. We measure it in impact. Serac felt that. He didn't understand it fully, but he felt it. If we're going to disappear, Vance said, then we're going to make sure it means something. Behind her, alarms flickered briefly, then stabilized. The void was getting closer. You still don't understand, do you? She added. No, Serac admitted. Vance nodded slowly. That's okay. She turned slightly, preparing to end the transmission. You will, she said. Then she paused. Just for a second, and added, we've been practicing for extinction our entire history. The transmission cut. Serac stood motionless. Behind him, the assembly was fleeing. Ahead of him, 42 human ships were flying towards something that erased existence itself. He should have dismissed it. He should have labeled it irrational. He should have turned away. But instead, for the first time in centuries, he kept watching. The message reached Earth in seconds. No warning. No build-up. Just a priority signal that overrode every network on the planet. Phones. Billboards. Satellites. Military channels. Everything. For the first time in human history, the entire species was watching the same thing at the same moment. President Elias Karim stood alone. No flags behind him. No advisors. No symbols. Just a man, and a truth too heavy for any one person to carry. Behind him, the live feed of space hovered. A cluster of stars flickered. One vanished. No explosion. No light. Just gone. Around the world, people leaned closer to their screens. My fellow humans, Karim said. His voice didn't shake. But it wasn't strong either. It was real. We are not alone. A pause. We never were. Another star disappeared. Children pointed at screens. Parents didn't answer their questions. The civilizations out there, the ones we looked up to, he hesitated for the first time. They are running. That word spread faster than the signal itself. Running. Not fighting. Not resisting. Running. They have seen what is coming, Karim continued. And they have decided survival is more important than resistance. No anger. No judgment. Just truth. They offer to take us with them. Across Earth, a flicker of hope appeared. Brief. Fragile. We refused. It shattered instantly. Confusion exploded everywhere. What? Why would we? That's suicide. Karim raised his hand slightly, not to silence, but to steady. I know what you're thinking, he said. That we should go. That we should survive. He nodded once. You're right. That stopped people. Because no one expected agreement. We should survive, he repeated. That has always been the goal. He stepped closer to the camera. But here's the truth they didn't tell you. The stars behind him flickered again. Fewer now. If we run, we don't make it. The words landed cold. Heavy ships. Limited range. No infrastructure beyond the evacuation corridor. Data flashed briefly. Routes, distances, probabilities. All of them ending the same way. Failure. We would die out there, Kareem said.
Alone.
Scattered. Forgotten. The hope that had sparked
Went dark.
And if we stay, he paused. This time longer. Because this part mattered. We die here. No music. No drama. Just fact. But then,
His voice changed.
not louder,
Sharper.
but we die together. Something shifted. Invisible, but powerful. We die protecting something. Across the world,
People stopped panicking.
they started listening. We die buying time for those who come after us. Factories slowed, then restarted. We die making sure that whatever this thing is. His eyes locked onto the camera. It remembers us. That was the turning point. Not hope. Not victory. Memory. Meaning. You're not being forced to stay, Kareem said. This is not an order. He let that breathe. Evacuation ships will depart. Anyone who wants to leave can leave. A long pause. Then, if you stay knowing the truth. Silence. No one is coming to save us. Another star vanished. No miracle is guaranteed. More silence. But this, his voice lowered. This is ours. He straightened. And now, for the first time, there was fire. We have spent our entire history fighting extinction. Images flashed, wars, disasters, survival. We survived ice ages. We survived plagues. We survived ourselves. Each line hit harder. They think we're just another species. A faint smile. They think we'll run like everyone else. His eyes hardened. They're about to learn something. A beat. Something dangerous. We don't. The transmission ended. For 2 seconds, nothing happened. Then, the world changed. A construction worker in Karachi turned off the evacuation alert and picked up a welding torch. A nurse in London walked past a transport queue and into a hospital already preparing for war. A teenager in Jakarta deleted his escape registration and opened a recruitment form. A retired soldier in Texas unlocked a box he hadn't touched in years. Across continents, people made the same choice. Not because they believed they would win, but because, for the first time, they understood something simple. Running wasn't survival. Standing was. Within hours, civilian ships stopped preparing for departure. Instead, they were stripped apart, rebuilt, rearmed. Factories switched from consumer goods to weapons. Cities reorganized into defense grids. Humanity didn't unify because of a speech. Humanity unified because there was nothing left to divide. Fear didn't disappear. It transformed into purpose, into defiance, into something older than civilization itself. Something that had carried humanity from caves to stars. And now, into war, the world did not panic. It transformed. Within hours of the broadcast, every major system on Earth shifted into something it had not been in generations. Total mobilization. Not chaos. Not collapse. Precision. Air traffic vanished, replaced by military corridors. Civilian satellites reoriented, forming layered sensor grids that stretched from Earth orbit to the outer edges of the solar system. Communication networks condensed, hardened, prioritized. Everything unnecessary.
Shut down.
Everything essential. Amplified. And at the center of it all, humanity moved with a kind of focus it had not shown in centuries. On the night side of Earth, entire cities went dark. Not from failure. From intention. Power was rerouted to manufacturing zones, massive industrial sectors that now ran without pause. Assembly lines that once produced vehicles, appliances, and luxury goods were stripped down and rebuilt in hours. Now they produced weapons. Simple ones. Efficient ones. Millions at a time. In orbit, shipyards that had never been designed for war began constructing hulls at impossible speeds. Civilian transports were gutted, reinforced, and fitted with whatever weapon systems could be mounted. They were not elegant,
They were not optimized.
but they would fly. And that was enough. On Mars, the red dust never settled. Colonists who had spent their lives terraforming a future world now began unmaking it. Tunnels were deepened, habitats reinforced, surface structures rigged with explosives. If they want this planet, one engineer said quietly, they can dig for it. In the asteroid belt, miners changed targets. No longer extracting resources for trade, they began harvesting mass. Rock, metal, anything with weight, anything that could be accelerated. Kinetic weapons, primitive, devastating. And everywhere, people trained, not just soldiers. Everyone. A schoolteacher in Nairobi stood in a converted gymnasium, showing a group of teenagers how to hold a rifle. A farmer in Argentina walked his children through evacuation drills, then quietly showed them where he kept the backup weapons. A software engineer in Seoul worked 20 hours straight, rewriting targeting algorithms for defense satellites. A group of elderly veterans in Moscow reopened an abandoned bunker and began organizing supply chains like they had done decades ago. No one was forced. No one hesitated. Because by now, everyone understood. There was no after. Only now, 3 days after the decision, the first warning came. A deep space sensor array at the edge of the solar system flickered once, then twice, then went silent. In orbit above Earth, Admiral Helena Vance stood on the bridge of the command carrier Resolute, watching the incoming data. "Confirm loss," she said. "Confirmed," replied her tactical officer. "Array Delta 7 is offline. No debris. No signal." Vance didn't react. She had expected this. "How long?" someone asked. The room was quiet. Too quiet. "Less than a week," Vance said. No one argued. No one questioned. Because they could all feel it now. The thing moving through the stars. Closer.
Faster.
Hungry. "Status of the fleet," Vance continued. A display lit up. Numbers. Ships. Not enough. "Current operational count. 63 combat-capable vessels," the officer reported. Additional 112 retrofitted civilian ships in various stages of readiness. Vance studied the data, then nodded once. "It'll have to do." No one said what everyone was thinking. It wouldn't be enough. Ground readiness? Urban defense grids active in 87% of major population centers. Remaining areas at partial readiness. Orbital platforms? Reconfigured and online. Ammunition reserves limited. Everything was limited.
Time.
Resources.
Lives.
Vance stepped forward, resting her hands lightly on the command console. "Good," she said. The word didn't mean success. It meant ready. Across the solar system, something else was happening. Something quieter, but just as important. Dr. Amina Solis stared at the data stream in front of her. She wasn't a soldier. She wasn't a strategist.
She was a neuroscientist.
And she had been awake for 38 hours. "They're not just destroying matter," she said softly. Her assistant looked up. "What do you mean?" Amina zoomed in on the fragmented sensor logs recovered before the array went dark. Patterns. Impossible ones. "Look at this," she said. "Energy signatures?"
No.
Her voice dropped. "Memory signatures." The assistant frowned. "That's not possible." Amina didn't respond immediately, because she wasn't sure it was. Every time they passed through a system, she continued slowly, there's a collapse, not just in physical structures but in informational coherence. "What?" "They're not just removing things," Amina said. "They're removing the record that those things ever existed." Silence.
Cold.
"Heavy." "That means," the assistant whispered. Amina nodded. "If they reach Earth." She didn't finish the sentence.
She didn't need to.
Back on the Resolute, Vance watched the stars. One flickered, then vanished.
Closer now.
Much closer. She exhaled slowly. "Signal all commands," she said.
Her voice was calm.
But absolute. "Final readiness protocols." Around her, officers moved instantly. No hesitation. No delay. Because this was it. The waiting was over. Across Earth, sirens did not sound. There was no announcement. No final warning. People simply looked up and saw the sky changing. Stars disappearing, one by one. And for the first time since the broadcast, humanity didn't just prepare. They braced. The war hadn't started yet, but it was already here. The first human world to fall was not Earth. It was Callisto Station, a mining colony orbiting Jupiter. Population, 312,000. Distance from Earth, close enough to see the blue glow in the sky. Far enough to be first. There was no warning, no build-up, no dramatic arrival. One moment, space was normal. The next, it wasn't. The stars behind Jupiter vanished, not dimmed, not obscured,
Gone.
as if someone had reached into the universe and erased them. Contact lost with outer sensors. Multiple signatures, no, not signatures, gaps. What the hell are we looking at? The control room dissolved into confusion. Screens glitched. Data corrupted. Reality itself seemed to hesitate. Captain Elena Ruiz stood at the center of it. She didn't shout, didn't panic. She just watched. Because instinct, old human instinct, was already telling her the truth. "We're first," she said quietly. The room went still. Outside, something moved. Not ships. Not structures. Something worse. Shapes that didn't hold form. Masses that seemed to exist between frames. Like reality couldn't fully render them. "Evacuation protocol?" someone asked. Ruiz didn't answer immediately, because she already knew the math. Distance.
Time. Speed.
There was no escape. Instead, she tapped her console. Open channel to Earth Command. A pause. Connection established. Admiral Vance appeared. "Captain Ruiz," she said. No wasted words. "You see it?" Ruiz nodded once. "Yes, ma'am." A flicker behind her. Another star gone. "How long?" Vance asked. Ruiz glanced at the collapsing sensor grid. "Minutes. Maybe less." "Not enough," she said. Silence. Not uncertainty. Understanding. Vance exhaled slowly. "Your call, Captain." That was it. No orders. No command. Just trust. Ruiz closed her eyes for half a second. Then opened them.
Clear. Steady.
Understood. She cut the connection. "Listen up," Ruiz said, turning to her crew. "No speech. No drama. Just truth. We're not getting out." No one argued. No one cried. Because they could see it now. The thing outside.
Closing in.
But we're not going quietly. That got their attention. "Station core," Ruiz continued, "is a fusion lattice, correct?" "Yes, Captain." "Overload potential?" The engineer hesitated. Then, catastrophic. Ruiz nodded.
Good.
Understanding spread through the room.
Fast. Cold. Certain.
"We're turning this place into a bomb." Somewhere, a man laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it made sense. "Evacuation?" someone asked again. Ruiz shook her head. "No time." A beat. "Send a message instead." Across the station, the announcement played.
Calm. Clear.
Unavoidable. "This is Captain Ruiz." A pause. Then, "We have confirmed contact with the enemy. No lies. No evacuation is possible." Silence followed. Heavy.
Real.
"But we have one option."
Now.
Voices stopped. People listened. "We can hurt them." That was enough. "We are initiating full core overload."
Gasps.
Whispers. Fear. Briefly. "If you want to hide." Ruiz's voice softened slightly. "You can." A pause. "But if you want to matter." Her tone sharpened. "Report to your stations." The message ended. For 5 seconds. Nothing happened. Then, movement. A technician wiped his eyes and sat back down at his console. A maintenance worker picked up a tool and didn't put it down. A group of civilians, halfway to the emergency shelters,
Stopped. Turned.
walked back. Not because they were brave. Because they had decided. Back in control. Core instability at 12%. The engineer reported. Ruiz nodded. Keep it climbing. Outside. The shapes were closer now. Pressing against reality. Pulling at it. A young officer stepped beside Ruiz. Captain. She hesitated. I have a daughter. Ruiz didn't look at her. Me too.
A beat.
She's on Earth. The officer swallowed. Mine isn't. Ruiz finally turned. Their eyes met. Understanding passed between them. Instant. Complete. Then let's make sure this buys her something, Ruiz said. The officer nodded and went back to work. Core at 47%. 72%. Structural integrity failing. Outside. The first edge of the station began to disappear. Not explode. Not break. Disappear. Like it had never been built. Time, Ruiz asked. 30 seconds. She took a breath.
Slow. Steady.
Open broadcast. The signal cut across every channel. Every frequency. Every human system. This is Callisto Station. Her voice carried. Strong. Unshaken. We're about to show you how to fight this thing. Across Earth. People stopped. Listened. We don't know what it is. Ruiz continued. We don't know how to stop it.
A beat.
But we know this. Her eyes locked forward. At the thing erasing her world. It can be hurt. The core screamed behind her. Energy building. Reality bending. Remember that. The transmission cut. Core at 100%. Ruiz smiled. Just slightly. Good. Outside. The void reached for the station. Inside. 312,000 humans stood their ground. Detonate.
Light.
Not a flash. Not an explosion. A star. Born in an instant. The shockwave tore through space. Raw, violent, undeniable. And for the first time, the void reacted. It recoiled. Not much. Not long. But enough. Enough to prove something. Back on Earth, Admiral Vance watched the feed. Her jaw tightened. Did we hurt it? Someone asked. Data scrolled. Erratic. Incomplete. Then, confirmation. Yes, Vance said. One word. But it changed everything. Because now, it wasn't unbeatable. It could bleed. And humanity had just learned how to make it. That was the first sacrifice. It would not be the last. Across the system, similar stories began. A cargo pilot rerouted his ship straight into an advancing anomaly. A lunar base vented its atmosphere, collapsing itself to deny the enemy data. A group of engineers on Europa flooded their own reactor chamber, turning it into a trap. Each one small. Each one hopeless. Each one human. They didn't fight to win. They fought to matter. And somewhere, in whatever passed for awareness within the void, something changed. For the first time, it wasn't just feeding. It was learning. And what it was learning was dangerous. The war did not slow the enemy, but it changed it. That was enough. 7 days after Callisto, the losses were catastrophic. Mars orbit, compromised. Europa, silent. Outer colonies, gone. Not destroyed. Erased. But not instantly anymore. Not cleanly. Not perfectly. The void hesitated now. Briefly. Unpredictably. As if something inside it was adjusting. On Earth, deep beneath the surface, in a facility that officially did not exist. Dr. Amina Solis stared at the data. And finally, she understood. They're not just consuming matter, she said. Her voice was quiet.
But sharp.
They're consuming information. Around her, a team of scientists froze. Because they had all suspected it. None of them had proven it. Every system they erase, Amina continued, is not just destroyed, it's removed from reality's record. She pulled up layered scans.
Before. After.
Difference. Mass disappears, she said. Energy signatures collapse. But more importantly, she zoomed further.
Deeper.
Memory patterns vanish. The room went silent. They don't kill civilizations, Amina said. They delete them. A military analyst frowned. That doesn't help us. Amina shook her head slowly.
No.
A pause. Then, it does. She turned. eyes sharp now, focused. What happens when they consume us? No one answered, because the answer was obvious. We disappear, someone said. Amina nodded. Yes.
A beat.
But what do they gain? Silence again. Everything we are, she said. Our memories. Our thoughts. Our identity. She stepped closer to the display. And that's the problem. The analyst blinked. Problem. Amina's expression changed. Not fear. Not hope. Something else. Realization. They're not designed for individuality, she said. They operate as a unified system. A single processing entity. She pulled up the Callisto data. Fragmented. Chaotic. After the explosion, she continued, we saw something strange. The room leaned in. They didn't just recover. A pause. They glitched. Data streams appeared. Corrupted signals. Feedback loops. Micro-instabilities. For 0.8 seconds, Amina said they lost cohesion. Because of the explosion?
No.
She shook her head. Because of us. That landed. They consumed human neural data during the event, she explained. Fragments. Incomplete. She zoomed in further. And it disrupted them. The analyst's eyes widened. You're saying? Amina nodded slowly. They can't process us properly. Silence. Then, understanding. Because we're too complex? Someone asked. Amina smiled faintly.
No.
A beat. Because we're too different. She turned back to the display. Every human mind is unique. Conflicting. Emotional. Irrational. Another beat. Messy. The word hung in the air. They consume order, she continued. Consistency. Predictable patterns. Her voice lowered. We are not predictable. The room shifted. Energy changed. What are you proposing? The analyst asked carefully. Amina took a breath. Then said the one thing that would change everything. We feed ourselves to them. Silence. Not confusion. Not immediately. Then, shock. That's suicide. Yes. Then it's pointless. No, Amina said. Her eyes burned now. Not if we do it right. She pulled up a new model. Something theoretical. Unstable. Dangerous. What if we don't just let them consume us, she said. What if we overload them? The room froze. With what? Someone whispered. Amina answered without hesitation. Everything. The display shifted. Now showing human brain patterns. Billions of them. Layered.
Stacked.
Colliding. Every memory. Every emotion. Every contradiction. She turned. We don't give them a civilization. A step forward. We give them humanity. The analyst stared at the data, trying to process it. Failing. That would destroy us. Amina nodded. Yes.
A beat.
But it might destroy them too. Silence filled the room. Heavy. Electric. Because this was not a weapon. This was something else. What are you calling it? Someone asked. Amina looked at the data one last time. At the chaos. The beauty. The contradiction of it all. Then said, the Echo Protocol. Far above. In orbit. Admiral Vance received the proposal. She read it once. Then again. Then she laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was human. Of course, she said quietly. Of course this was their answer. Not strength. Not power. But something far more dangerous. Themselves. And for the first time since the war began, humanity had a way to win. Not by surviving, but by changing the enemy. Or destroying it. Completely, they called it a weapon. It wasn't. It was a message. The Echo payload rested at the center of the launch bay. Small. Deceptively simple. A sphere no larger than a human torso. Inside it, everything. 18 billion minds. Memories layered over memories. Love.
Fear. Rage. Joy.
Contradiction. Humanity. Compressed into a single impossible object. Dr. Amina Solis stood beside it. For the first time in days. She wasn't working. She was looking at what they had built. At what they were about to do. Is it enough? Someone asked quietly. Amina didn't answer immediately, because the truth was uncomfortable. "I don't know," she said. Behind her, Admiral Vance stood. "It has to be. No backup plan. No second attempt. No margin for error. Because the mission itself was impossible. To deliver the payload, they had to reach the center of the void, the primary convergence point, the place where the enemy was most dense, most aware, most dangerous. No fleet could survive that. So, they didn't send a fleet. They sent one ship, the Resolute Spear.
Fast. Light.
Reinforced with everything humanity had left. Its job. Reach the core. Hold position. Transmit the payload. Time required. 3 minutes. Estimated survival time. Less than 30 seconds. Crew selection complete, an officer reported. Vance didn't look at the screen. How many volunteers? A pause. All of them. Of course. That was the problem with humans. You never had a shortage of people willing to die. Only a shortage of time to choose between them. Captain Arjun Malik stood on the launch platform. He hadn't slept, hadn't eaten, didn't care. Below him, the earth turned slowly.
Blue. Alive.
Still there.
For now.
"You can still back out," Vance said, stepping beside him. He shook his head. "No, ma'am. A beat. My family's down there." Vance followed his gaze. "So is mine." Silence. Then let's make sure they stay there." Malik smiled faintly. "Yes, ma'am." The fleet assembled. What remained of it? 40 ships. Damaged. Outnumbered. But not broken. They formed a defensive line. Not to win, but to delay. "Final confirmation," Vance said. "Echo payload armed. Navigation locked. Mission timer synced. 3 minutes." That was all. The void arrived. No warning. No transition. It was just
there.
The stars ahead collapsed into nothing. Space twisted. Sensors failed instantly. "Contact," someone shouted. Too late. The battle had already begun. Human ships surged forward. Not in formation. In defiance. They didn't try to hold the line. They broke it. Frigates rammed into shifting masses of nothing. Destroyers unleashed everything they had, knowing it wouldn't be enough. Explosions lit the void. Brief. Meaningless. But distracting. And that was the point. "Path is open," a pilot yelled. "For now." "Go," Vance said. The Resolute Spear launched. It didn't accelerate gradually. It jumped. Straight into the impossible. Inside, Malik gripped the controls. "Timer start," his co-pilot said. 3 minutes. The ship shook instantly. Not from impact. From reality itself resisting. Shields failing. "Stabilize. We're being pulled." "Hold it together." Outside, the void noticed them. That was the problem. Multiple contacts converging. How many? Too many? Malik didn't respond. He just flew. Not by calculation. By instinct. He twisted through collapsing space. Used debris as cover. Used enemy movement against itself. Things no simulation could predict. Because no simulation could think like a human. 2 minutes. The fleet behind them
was dying.
Ship after ship.
Gone.
Not destroyed. Removed. Vance watched it happen. Didn't look away. Because every second they bought mattered. Distance to core, 10,000 kilometers. Inside the spear. Systems were failing. Hull integrity dropping. Life support flickering. "Stay with me," Malik muttered. Not to his crew. To the ship. 1 minute. The void pressed closer. Not physically. Mentally. Malik felt it. A presence. Cold. Endless. Hungry. Trying to understand him. Trying to consume him. "You want my mind?" he whispered. His grip tightened. "Come get it." 30 seconds. The core appeared. Not a structure. A distortion. A place where reality bent inward. Everything led there. Everything ended there. Final approach. The ship screamed. Metal tearing. Systems collapsing. Crew shouting. Then silence. One by one, they disappeared. Until only Malik remained. 10 seconds. The payload activated behind him, glowing, alive. Humanity, waiting. 5. Malik smiled, not in fear, in acceptance. 3. For Earth, he said softly. 2. For all of us. 1. Impact. The resolute spear vanished, but the payload did not. It embedded itself into the core, and for one moment, nothing happened. Then, the void consumed it, like it had consumed everything else. And then, it tasted humanity.
Pain, love, war,
Hope,
loss, joy, rage, beauty.
chaos. 18 billion lives. All at once. Not as data, as experience. The void stopped. For the first time in its existence, it did not know what to do. And then, it began to break, at first. No one understood what they were seeing. The void stopped. Not retreated. Not destroyed.
Stopped.
Across Earth's orbit, the few remaining ships drifted in silence. Weapons powered down, not by command, but because there was nothing left to fire at. Admiral Vance stood on the shattered bridge of the Resolute. Half the crew was gone. The rest stared at the stars, because the stars were back.
Not all of them.
But enough. Enough to matter. Report, she said quietly. Her voice sounded smaller now. Not weaker. Just human. Enemy activity, collapsing. An officer replied. They're not advancing. A pause. They're fragmenting. Vance closed her eyes. Just for a second. Casualties. Silence. Too long. Most of the fleet.
Of course.
She nodded once. Because that was the cost. Days passed. Then weeks. The void did not return. Instead, something else did. Signals.
Weak.
Unstable. But real. Dr. Amina Solis stared at the incoming transmission. Her hands trembled. It's them, she whispered. Not the same. Not unified. Broken. Individual.
Confused. Alive.
The first message wasn't words. It was feeling. Fragments of thought. Emotion. Memory. Not taken.
Shared.
They're not one mind anymore, Amina said. They're, she struggled for the word.
People.
Months later, the Orion assembly returned.
Cautiously. Carefully.
Expecting silence. Ruins. Nothing. Instead, they found Earth. Damaged.
Scarred.
But standing. Ships moved through orbit. Cities burned. But rebuilt. Humanity.
Alive.
Ambassador Serac stepped onto the observation platform. He had lived for centuries. Seen civilizations rise and fall. But this was different. You stayed, he said quietly. Vance stood beside him. Older now. Tired. We did. You fought something that erased existence itself. A small nod. And you won. Vance looked at the stars. Then back at him.
No, she said.
A pause. We survived. Serac studied her.
How?
Vance thought for a moment. Then answered simply. We didn't stop. That was it. No grand explanation. No complex strategy. Just truth. Serac looked out at the galaxy. At the places where stars had once vanished. Now slowly returning. And for the first time, he understood. Humanity wasn't the strongest. Wasn't the oldest. Wasn't the smartest. But it was something else. Something far more dangerous. It refused to end. And somewhere, in the quiet between stars, something new drifted. A fragment of what had once been the void. No longer empty. No longer hungry. It remembered. Not everything. Not clearly. But enough. A child's laughter. A soldier's last stand. A mother's voice. It turned, not toward Earth, but away. Learning. Becoming. And, in that moment, the galaxy changed. Not because humanity had won, but because it had been felt.